Welcome back to the workshop. Spent a couple of days over this weekend having a play with the Karmann Ghia. The big thing is I got the chassis built up and ready to go. So I've got it loaded up with a battery and everything in it at the moment. It went together okay. I'm still not a big fan of some of the bits and pieces in it. And I mean, it's set up at the moment with quite a heavy amount of toe in on the back and toe out on the front, which makes for a slightly unusual thing when you look at it in plan view, but I guess that gives it a bit more stability. The only criticism I've got is even with the slightly stiffer rear springs in place, with a motor hanging over the back, it becomes very tail heavy. And in the end, what I've actually done is just turn up a couple of 4mm spacers at the moment, preload the rear springs just to give them a bit more stiffness. You can get some of that by moving the shocks inboard on the rear mount. The downside is that you end up softening the rate as you lift it up a little bit. So we'll try it like this, and we'll see how it runs on the pavement, road, car park, whatever. So at the moment, I've got the chassis set up nice and flat, nice and level, and we spent the day today playing around with body mounting options. So I've got the body nicely trimmed and sorted. Put all the holes in it, and I've just mocked everything else up just to make sure it's all good before we start painting. It's still a fantastic body. I think in the last video I mentioned there were some marks on the roof which I thought were sink marks. Actually, having read the instructions now, it turns out that some of the marks are alternative positions for your antenna tube. I can't believe that's still a thing in 2020, but there you go. You get your tube mounting kit in the you get your tube in the kit, I should say. And depending on orientation, when you put one of the brackets in, obviously you can flip it up through the back panel or through a couple of positions in the roof, which is just going to look a bit naff really. The most interesting part, well, I say that loosely, is actually sorting out a body mounting system so that I don't have to use body posts, which is why I was so pleased that the thing had no holes in it in the first place. I have spent today faffing around with neodymium ring magnets, and I just couldn't come up with a sensible solution. I mean, in the end, I'd got my rear body posts, and I've chopped the heck out of them. And as it turns out, they sit. If you mount them in the back, spin them 180, and mount them on the back side, they're actually the perfect ride height, but they don't give you any room to then put magnets or what have you on the top. So what I've done in the end is come up quite simply with just a couple of pieces of bent aluminium, and I'm going to use just velcro. Now, I mean, I figured I can get away with this. I mean, the magnets were mainly there for, well, I bought them for my crawlers, and of course the thing with a crawler is it might take an unintended tumble at some point, and you need something that's fairly strong, fairly hefty going. These are going to be fine. I mean, my biggest thing is going to be avoiding curbs, I think, rather than dropping it off, hills and everything else. So I figured that a bit of velcro across the front and a bit of velcro across the back will help stop the body rocking in the first place. It'll stop it vibrating up and down against the R-clips which hold it in, which hopefully will make it run a bit quieter as well. In theory, that should be all it needed. So I've taken on the rear, I'll show you a close-up photo, but in the rear what I've done is just taken existing body mounts off, bent a U shape of aluminium up, slotted both ends, and it just uses the existing mounting screws. So I got some way of adjusting the height of the rear of the body in case it turns out to sit too low. For the front, I've done much the same again. I bent another piece of aluminium up. This time I've mounted it over the existing body posts. And on both of them I've just curved the top to roughly match the body. I mean, your velcro takes up a bit of slack, so we can get away with that. And then this is you've got the rubber O-rings which I've put on, which allow you to stack O-rings either underneath the aluminium bracket or on top, which means that you've got some method of varying the height, albeit in 2mm increments. But I'm hoping that should be sufficient. And not a lot else to say with it really, other than get yourself a set of the Japanese industrial standard screwdrivers. Now, I mean, I picked a set of 4 up. Well, I've only got 3 here from Amazon. A US Pro sold by Bergen. There's something like £12.70 delivered for a set of 4. Absolutely brilliant. Fit the screws on this bob on. And if you've ever done a Tamiya kit with a standard Phillips screwdriver, you know if you get to that point where you try and put a bit of torque on it, it often just winds the screwdriver out of the head. These don't suffer from that. Fantastic. For the small amount of money, worth every penny. Only other suggestion probably to worry about is on the long wheelbase particularly, you've got the option to push the battery right to the front of the battery tray and put a spacer in at the back. So I would do that in preference to pushing the battery at the back, just to try and help add a bit of balance out to the chassis. And for that reason I've mounted the ESC as far forward as I could get, put the switch as far forward, so just left the lightest part, which is the receiver, stuck at the back ring. Ideally I wouldn't really have used brass collars on my rear suspension, but I hadn't got any aluminium, which was 3/4 of an inch in diameter, so brass it was. So with it just loosely bolted up, so what I've got that set at the height it needs to be with velcro on, even though it hasn't got any on, just to show you a rough setup ride height wise, and the front is the correct height with just a piece of velcro bobbed on. So one of the other advantages of the velcro is it means I don't have to be absolutely spot on when I'm drilling and mounting holes. I've got a little bit of adjustability and I can tweak the body shell left or right. I'm hoping the velcro should be strong enough. I guess worst comes to the worst, I made the strips are 12mm wide, so I can get some 1/2 inch velcro as opposed to the 3/8 of an inch that I've got at the moment. Other than that, I'm quite pleased with it. Next job is obviously washing, masking and painting. We're going to go for gunmetal grey in this. Hopefully we'll get another progress shot out tomorrow. Okay, thanks very much for watching. See you